What's up, everybody? Astrocatical here. Welcome to the Astrocastrophe, and I'm just going to touch upon this very momentarily because this is a pretty big deal in the Resident Evil community right now. And I think you're probably aware of what this is. I mean, just look at the thumbnail for starters. There has been another leak, allegedly. We're not sure if this is true or not, but the people, I think it's just like one guy in particular who's making these leaks. He's been verified in a number of situations from my understanding. And I believe this is the same guy who said that Resident Evil, the series, is now being made into this sort of slew of 5 games that are all consistently being worked on, with Resident Evil 9 being the sort of paramount of everything. So what is being said now is that Resident Evil, the original, is going through another remake, so that will make this the 3rd remake that the series has gone through, if this is true, which I believe there is a high probability for that. And the reason I say that is because this is just the nature of Capcom at this point. We've seen them do it consistently throughout the years, and one thing I'm going to point out here is the whole reason that Resident Evil 2 was remade in the first place was because Capcom saw people online trying to recreate it themselves, and they said, no, you can't do that, and shut the whole project down. I think they brought some people on from it too so they could work on the Resident Evil 2 remake, and then they remade the games themselves. So if you've been anywhere on the internet within like the last 2.5 years and are a fan of the Resident Evil series, and are a fan of these remakes and fan projects in general, then you've probably seen that there is a person out there, or persons, I'm not sure, who've been trying to recreate the original Resident Evil in the Unreal Engine. So I'm sure Capcom has seen that already, and you know, it's got light bulbs firing up inside their head, and they're probably going to step in there at some moment and tell this person to stop doing it, because they're going to remake the game themselves. So I see them doing it for that reason. The other reason is, like I said, this is just the nature of Capcom at this point. They've been doing this consistently throughout the years, and what I've noticed with them is they'll make a game, you know, like it'll be like a sequitur sort of release in the series, like, you know, they make Resident Evil this and then they remake one of them, they make Resident Evil that and then they remake one of them. So they're going to remake, excuse me, they're going to make Resident Evil 9 and then they're going to remake another Resident Evil. But I think what people are expecting is a remake of Resident Evil 5, which is, I think, very easy to get that done, very easy to accomplish that. It's a quick fix. It satiates the new generation of Resident Evil fans because it's just one of the most cliche and overrated Resident Evil games that there is on the market, and it's a quick buck. I don't know why they're even contemplating that, other than shutting up the new generation fans, because they've been, for quite some time now, I don't know how long, they've been asking pretty much for Capcom to remake that game, which I'm not excited about, because the older generation fans, such as myself, want Capcom to remake Resident Evil Code Veronica, but I don't know if they're going to do that because I think it's too risky. And the reason I say it's too risky is because it's too weird of a title. It was on the Dreamcast. It didn't do well because it was a Dreamcast game. It's got a weird storyline. It's got weird bosses. That game is all around one of the more beloved but forgotten titles of the series. And I think it would be much harder, especially for the writing team, to remake Code Veronica. And it would be so much easier for them to pick up something like Resident Evil 5, which is like pure stupidity. I mean, you're going into a volcano to fight the end boss. I mean, that's not possible. You're not going to go into a volcano and survive, for starters. You won't even make it to the bottom, even if there is a rocky platform for you to stand on and punch boulders at. I mean, you're blowing up Wesker with 2 rockets at the same time while he's burning to death in liquid hot magma. And I mean, this game all around just has never appealed to me in any way possible, being that it's 2-player as well, and you pretty much need someone else to play that game with you because the AI is so bad. That, in my honest opinion, I think in many situations I'd rather play 6 before I would play 5. But I think really what it is that's just an easy fix for Capcom. And the thing is, they do this. They'll make a Resident Evil game, and then they'll remake one of them to sort of like, it's like sort of like their plan B. If like, and that's why I think this is where I'm going with this. If Resident Evil 9 doesn't do good, then their plan B is either the Resident Evil 5 remake or the Resident Evil remake of the remake. So it's one of the two. Which is actually a good idea. I give them props for doing that, but I think that I would rather see Resident Evil remade again than see a Resident Evil 5 remake. However, if they do a Resident Evil 5 remake and actually make it good, you know, and they take away all the stupidity of that game, then I might actually want to see that. But above anything, I want to see Code Veronica remade, but I just don't think that they have a team of writers prepared to do that, and I think that's why they'd rather do something simple like Resident Evil 5 or Resident Evil Code Veronica. I mean, Resident Evil the original. I think it'd be super simple to remake the original Resident Evil at this point. I mean, they already have the Unreal Engine, or not the what is it, the RE engine. They have that completely figured out at this point. Ever since the development of 7, we've seen that engine used successfully so many times, and it's like they really don't even have to put any work or effort into that at all. The only thing that they really got to worry about is the graphics and basically the marketing and the storyline. And I mean, like, Capcom has had some pretty good writers to some pretty crap ones. Like, I think when it comes to like Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil 5, Resident Evil 6, even Resident Evil 7 and 8, you know, the writing's either all over the place or it's just really cheesy and gimmicky. But like when it comes to like Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 8, they make it work, you know, and you kind of play the game for that cheesiness. But like when it comes to like Resident Evil 6 and Resident Evil 5, it's like they go above and beyond with that, and it's to the point to where it's just not enjoyable for someone like me, because it's just too absurd. I mean, when you're, you know, in a volcano punching a boulder, I mean, it's just ridiculous. And the storylines have never been particularly good, but I think when it came to Code Veronica actually had some character to it. It had a villain who was a cross-dresser, obsessed with his sister, living out his sister in his head, which is why he would wear women's clothes, because he was trying to live out his sister. Weird psychological Norman Bates shit that you'd only see in like a Silent Hill game. That shit was going on in Code Veronica, and I don't think they have the writers or enough wherewithal to put the effort into doing that. And so it'd be much easier to hire these guys for really cheap and have them just do Resident Evil 5 or Resident Evil 1 all over again. That's what I really think. And that's why, like, we never really hear anything about Code Veronica, because it's too sacred, it's too forgotten, it's too good. And it was good. It was that one Resident Evil title that didn't get enough love. I mean, in the sort of sense of like being critically acclaimed, being popular, being picked up by the media. It was on the Dreamcast. You know, like the people who played it, and everybody else really just kind of didn't get a chance with it or forgot about it. But it's the one Resident Evil game, sort of like how I want to see the original Silent Hill be remade. But all the while, AAA studios are just going to go where the money is. And they see money in remaking Resident Evil 5, so that's probably why they're doing it. And they see money in remaking a remake of the original Resident Evil. So how do I feel about this Resident Evil being remade? Well, this is my favorite Resident Evil game out of the entire series. So my favorite is Resident Evil the remake, or remaster, whatever you want to call it, Resident Evil 8, and then Resident Evil 2 remake. Those are my top 3 Resident Evil games. Remaking this in the RE engine poses a number of problems in my eyes, because I imagine that's what they're going to be using if they remake this. Trust me, I want to see it, but it poses a lot of issues. One of the things about this game, and everyone knows this, the reason it's hard, if you find it hard, I mean, if you've mastered this game, you've mastered the game. There's no challenge to it once you've mastered it. But for anyone who's new to the game, or anyone who played it for the first time, the hardest thing about this game, it's not the tyrant. You know, it's the tyrant is probably the easiest part of this game. It's not the shark. It might be the hunters. It could almost be the dogs. It's not the spiders. It is sometimes the chimeras, but the hardest thing in this game is literally the zombies. That is the hardest thing in this game, is literally the zombies. The hunters, you can easily take care of them if you have a shotgun or a magnum, and they give themselves away immediately. You hear them running, you hear them squealing, and it's just one shot, they're down. Usually. The zombies are the hardest part in this game. The reason why is because these tight corners, these narrow passages and these tight corners is the reason the zombies are so hard. They grab onto you so damn easily, whereas a hunter can swipe at you and you can easily dodge that shit. The zombies are the most prominent, frequent enemy in this game. They're the hardest part about it. However, in the RE engine, with that over-the-shoulder shooting, the style that you see in Resident Evil 4, the style that you see in the Resident Evil 2 remake, and the Resident Evil 3 remake, that makes things so much easier in dodging them. That makes it just as easy as you would, I mean, avoiding, I'd say, a hunter in this game, because the thing that makes this hard is the camera angles. You don't see the zombies, the controls are awkward, whereas you have way more control from a third person perspective. Again, you can't see around the corners. These are tight, narrow passages. The zombies latch onto you so easily. So I believe with the freedom of movement in the RE engine, you're gonna have difficulty making those zombies a challenge for you. Another thing is there's not a whole lot of zombies in this game. Whether you want to admit it or not, they're the most prominent enemy, yes. But compare the number of zombies in this game to the number of zombies you see in the Resident Evil 2 game, even the original Resident Evil, the Resident Evil remake. Compare them to the number of zombies you see in Resident Evil 3. Compare them to the number of zombies you see in any other Resident Evil game. There's not a lot of zombies in this game, comparatively speaking. There isn't. And the most zombies you will ever see in a single corridor in this game is 3. You will never see 4. You will never see 5. You will see a maximum of 3. There's only 2 environments in this game where there's 4 or 5 zombies in the same room, and it's that green hallway where you steal the shotgun and the ceiling comes down to squish you to death. The Jill sandwich hallway, that green hallway, if you go through that hallway at a certain point in the game, I believe it's when you're going to the courtyard, you go through there, zombies break into the window, and I think there's almost 4 or 5 zombies in that scene. There's another hallway that leads to the room where you put the poison in the thing that kills the plant, so you can grab the emblem. You probably know what I'm talking about. It's around the housekeeper, whatever his name is, the dude that pops out of the closet. The whatever, but that hallway too has a scene where the zombies will break into there, and I think the maximum is I think only 2 or 3 coming through there. So in Resident Evil 2, the remake, you're in a hallway full of, like, I don't know, maybe 6 zombies, maybe 7. They break through the windows. They're coming at you in packs. That's the problem with this game. You don't have packs of zombies coming at you, and if it's in the RE engine, these zombies are going to be incredibly simple to dispatch. They're going to be incredibly simple to avoid. There's not going to be huge numbers of them coming at you, and part of the problem with that is this game just does not work well with large groups of zombies. It makes it an action game at that point. And Resident Evil, the original Resident Evil, is not an action game. It is a horror game. That's why there's a limited number of zombies. It is not an action game. Resident Evil 2, yes, it's a horror game, but it is also an action game. So that is my issue with it. And I think they could make it work. They could. They just might have to put more zombies into it. But I don't know if that's going to sort of eradicate the feeling of this being a Resident Evil that we grew up with. I don't know if it's going to feel the same. It might be more of an action game. You remember the Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles? It might be something more like that. When you have Chris and Jill coming into the mansion and it seems like House of the Dead. It might be something more in line with that. So I don't know how this is possibly going to work out and retain its level of horror. I think it's just going to be an action game. I've heard this mentioned. Maybe Lisa can be a stalker. It's a good idea. I think adding a stalker would definitely help this game. Also, up here, when you fight the tyrant, okay, this is the easiest battle in the entire game. I don't care what anyone says. He is far too slow moving. And the second time you fight him, you don't even have to shoot him. You don't. That's how easy this guy is. I want them to change that, because this is the most epic part of the game, in my honest opinion. But the fight itself does not hold up. The player versus enemy versus end boss does not hold up. He is way too simple. Way too easy. And so I hope they make improvements with that. And yes, on the helipad, make it so you have to shoot him, or make it so he's incredibly hard to avoid, because he's just as easy to beat up there as he is down here. He is not a challenge at all. But he's the most badass villain in the game. I love him more than Nemesis. Him and Mr. X are my favorite tyrants, but it's really hard for me to decide. But the boss battle is way too easy. And I think too, if they made some extension to the lab, because this is the end part of the game and it's very short-lived, I think you could maybe have the tyrant stalk you. If you add an extra scenario to the lab after you kill him for the first time, maybe he can stalk you through the laboratory. Because again, I think this game's going to be way too easy. There's not going to be enough enemies, and throwing too many enemies in there is going to turn it into an action game like Resident Evil 2 or maybe even Resident Evil 4.
Barry.
You gotta love Barry. He must really be afraid of Umbrella.
And I mean, like, that's my point with this. I would love to see it. And I kind of hope they do remake it just to see what they do with it, but I think
sticks to cow him, but it had nothing to do with
I think you would honestly have to do what you did with Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 8. You'd have to put in the first person view, because it just doesn't work. If you want to retain that sense of horror, it just does not work, because this game doesn't scare you by throwing hundreds of zombies at you. It scares you with its creepiness and its mystery, and you know, this dark, foreboding mansion. You know, it's the dark, dim lighting, you know, out in the woods, you know, no clue what's going on. You're all separated, you're by yourselves, you know, the isolation setting in. This is supposed to be a scary game. I don't need it to be an action game, and I think that's the only course they can take with it, by putting it in that engine.
It's magnificent.
Unless they do something different. I don't know. But I also think that they're kind of doing this sort of thing as a backup plan for Resident Evil 9. If Resident Evil 9 doesn't do good, then they have these remakes to make their money back with. That's why there's like 5 games in the work, I'm imagining. But I love Resident Evil. I think it's honestly the biggest franchise out there. I can't think of any other video game franchise that has more games in the series. Maybe Final Fantasy. I I just don't know any series out there that's bigger than this, other than maybe Call of Duty. But I don't know. Call of Duty seems like it's dying anyways. But yeah, I hope they do well with this series. And again,
Damn it!
there could be a lot of changes
Jill and Barry
to it, but I don't know if those
Hell.
the implication of these changes is going to help the game the way I would like it to. I think honestly, like I said, they would have to do this the same way they did with Resident Evil 7 if they want to retain the sense of horror or make it even more horrifying. That's what I would want them to do, is make the game scarier, not more action-packed. But I have a feeling they're going to do the action-packed thing, which they don't need to do. We've told them that before, have we not? Have we told Capcom that before with Resident Evil 6? We don't need the action thing. And so what do? They return to horror. And what I think they're gonna do, they're gonna go back towards the action. That's what they're gonna do. It's, you know, and I'm like, if you remake this game, man, I don't think I'm gonna look at it as the ultimate canon to the series. Because out of all of the games, I look at this as like the super canon. For Resident Evil Remake, I look at it as the super canon to this series. Anyways, Master Catacol, thank you for watching this. Keep your eyes peeled. We'll see if these leaks are true, if they can be verified. I don't know where I stand on it. I kind of gave you my opinion. I would like to see it, but I have a very horrid imagination of things that could go drastically wrong with this. But we can only hope and pray now, can't we? Anyways, thank you for watching this video, and I will see you next time.